Hello sir, I am Lanlin Delgaco, BS Fisheries 3. This is my video presentation for introductions of aquaculture. Number 1, explain the elaborate and appraise. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day and teach a man how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. If you are the consumer of fish, for example, we were given fish, you could only eat it that day, but this one will not be enough for a long time. But if learn the strategies for catching and acculturing fish, it will be satisfied for our daily life or for a lifetime. For example, it will not only serve as your food but also serve as your employment. And based on the reference, aquaculture continues to develop rapidly, especially through its growth in Asia. World aquaculture productions is increasing much more rapidly than animal husbandry. The capture fisheries, the other two sources of animal protein, urea, for the world's population, there is a widespread recognition that seafood production from capture fisheries is that peak and that aquaculture will be become increasingly important as a source of seafood production, and ultimately the main source. It seems inevitable that aquaculture will become increasingly important in terms of global security. Number 2, based on the State of the World Fisheries and Aquaculture 2020 and the Philippine Fisheries Profile 2019, summarize and explain the current scenario of the world aquaculture industry, current trends, industry problems and issues, and where do we from here. State of the aquaculture industry during the pandemic. State of the World Fisheries and Aquaculture 2020 and the Philippine Fisheries Profile 2019. Batay sa State of the World Fisheries and Aquaculture 2020 at the Pangasinan ng Pilipinas 2019, ibuod at ipaliwanag ang kasalukuyang senaryo ng mga world aquaculture industry. Ang mga kasalukuyang kalakaran sa industriya ng mga problema at issue at saan tayo nagmula dito, at ang estado ng industriya ng aquaculture sa panahon ng pandemya. So the current trends, according to the latest worldwide statistics on aquaculture compiled by FAO, World Aquaculture Production attained other all-time record high of 114.5 million tons in live weight in 2018, with total of farm gate sale value of USD to 263.6 billion. The total of production consisted of 82.1 million tons of aquatic animals and 32.4 million tons of aquatic algae. So, the ornamental seashells and pearls is USD 179,000. The farming of aquatic animals in 2018 was dominated by finfish as 54.3 million tons and USD 113.7 billion. Harvest from inland aquaculture as 47 million tons, as well as marine and coastal aquaculture is 7.3 million tons. And following finfish were mollusks is 17.7 million tons, and mainly bivalves, crustaceans is 9.4 million. Marine invertebrates is 435,400 tons, aquatic turtle is 370,000 tons, and frogs are 131,300 tons. As worldwide aquatic production of farm aquatic animals grow on average at 5.3% per year in the period of 2001 and 2018, whereas the growth was only 4% in 2017 and 3.2% in the rate as caused by slowdown in China, the largest producer, where aquaculture production's growth of only 2.2% in 2017 and 1.6% in 2018 were witnessed, while the combined production from the rest of the world still enjoyed moderate growth of the 6.7% and 5.5% respectively in the same of 2 years. Problem and issues. Global production of farm aquatic algae dominated by seaweeds experienced relatively low growth in the most years and even fell by 0.7% in 2018. This change was mainly caused by the slow growth in the output of tropical seaweed species and reduced production. In Southeast Asia, while seaweed farming productions of temperate and cold water species was still on the rise, the subsector of breeding and cultivation of aquatic animals and plants for ornamental use is well established economic activity widely distributed around the world. Crocodiles, alligators, and caimans are also commercially farmed in some countries for hides and meat. However, there is a lack of data on the productions of ornamental aquatics. Available data on the partially covering the producing countries are in the number of animals rather than weight. So, hence they are included from the discussion in this section. And the next, the high annual growth rates in the world. So, the productions of aquatic animals at the 10.8% and 9.5% witnessed in the 1980s and 1990s respectively have slowed gradually in the third millennium. So, the average annual growth rate was 5.8% in the period was 2001 and 2010 and 4.5% in the period of 2011 and 2018. So, despite the slow growth at the world level, at a high growth rate in the period 2009 into 2018 was still observed in a number of countries, including major producers, such as Indonesia is 12.4%, Bangladesh is 9.1%, Egypt is 8.4%, and Ecuador is 12%. When we talk about where do we go from here, we are in Asia, where some aquaculture developments over past decades during period of rapid growth were environmental destructive is not suitable. So these were especially in the Southeast Asias, and they were get very quick and enterprises without any consideration of long-term environmental impacts. This has led to a level poor image and suspension. How about the aquaculture industry during pandemic? So the fisheries value chains are experiencing greater demand from the consumers, coupled with the declining trend in the sustainability of some fish stocks. The full range of activities that are required to deliver fish and fish products from fisheries and aquaculture production to final consumers are complex, and technologies employed to manage this value chain vary from artisanal to highly industrial. Key activities in fisheries or aquaculture supply chain are fishing, aquaculture production, processing, transport of inputs, distribution, wholesale of retail marketing. Each of these activities are equal of importance to the success of supply chain. Each stage of the chain is susceptible to being disrupted or stopped by impacts of rising COVID-19 and related measures. If one of these buyer-seller links is ruptured by disease or containment measures, the outcome will be cascading chain of disruptions that will affect livelihoods and food security. Households experiencing financial distress may slow down their spending. The reduction of household demand, also influenced by containment measures, closure of food service, tourism sites, and others, affects production. So, the processing and distribution and cost disruption and international and domestic supply chains, the fact that live fresh or chilled fish, which represent 45% of fish consumed, are highly perishable, present additional logistical challenge in the supply chain. Furthermore, the reduction in the containment measures affects both nations' imports in produced foreign income, with significant consequence on a sector highly dependent on international trade. Finally, financial distress in business can lead to reduction in wages, working hours, of labor layoffs. As the financial sector is in difficulty, it has fewer resources to sustain the economic losses incurred. To addition, many insurers do not cover business interruption due to events such as COVID-19 disease. In summary, a flow disruptions anywhere the supply chain causes slowdown everywhere else only by protecting the buyer-seller links in each stage of supply. One assumption of fish and fish products and therefore successful and containing of the supply chain be achieved. It is therefore of paramount importance to provide all possible production to each stage of fisheries and aquaculture food chain. In the long term, but bottlenecks identified during the pandemic and the apparent need to shorten some fish supply chains can guide improvements to increase sustainability of fish supply and demand, including reduction of loss and waste. So, then question number 3 is explain the concept of blue revolution. Cite some example and thoughts about it from Cones. About blue revolution means a remarkable increase in the production of fish and marine products. It sees that emergence of aquaculture as one of the most important forms of agricultural activities. Aquaculture means all form of active culture of animals and plants living in marine, brackish, and freshwater. This is the advantages of blue revolution. Number 1 is providing food security, and number 2, providing nutrition security. Number 3, providing employment. Fishing, aquaculture, and host of allied activities are source of livelihood to over 14 million people in India. So, and the last, major foreign exchange earner. So, these are the advantages of blue revolution. And we have also the disadvantages of blue revolution. Number 1 is, unfortunately, since the advent of more intensive modern industrial aquaculture, serious environmental and social issues have developed. Millions of indigenous coastal people are being adversely also and affected. Next is, among serious problem is the degradation and loss of natural coastal resources. Next is accumulation of organic matter both in form of consumed feed and feces when aquaculture activities are conducted directly in the marine or brackish environment process, and eutrophication with associated depletion of oxygen in the water bodies. The loss of mangrove swamps and wetlands by conversion of their area into stream farms lead to exposure of coastal areas, erosion, flooding increase, salt erosion, and remove critical habitats for aquatic and terrestrial species. Outbreaks of pathogens are also a major risk factor in commercial of aquaculture. With millions of dollars lost annually, pathogens can only wipe out an aquaculture fishery, but they also can affect nearby wild species, which can result in collapse of this wild fishery. Next questions, number 4. Explain the efficiency of aquaculture in a food production. For me, aquaculture is the fastest growing food producing sector in the world, contributing 1/3 of global food fish production. The nutritional benefits of fish consumption have positive link to increase food security and decrease poverty rates in developing states. Aquaculture is economically more efficient and viable than land-based on animal farming system in the sense that fisheries are efficient converters of food to flesh, and there is a more production of fish biomass per unit area. Fish flesh is a highly digestible and considered as rich in several minerals and some vitamins. A better protein source. Aquaculture is needed the most efficient means of producing protein. Different sources of animal protein in our diets place different demands of natural resources. To decrease human consumption, aquaculture could help decrease the effects of human consumption of fish on freshwater and marine water habitat by producing food without taking away from overfished environments. Fish, plants, and shellfish produced in aquaculture farms are also used to rebuild species populations in freshwater and